As you settle into the depths of sleep, let me take you to a world you've only glimpsed in passing, one of darkness, despair, and inevitable decay. A future where humanity's greatest achievements have crumbled into hollow remnants, and the very essence of life has been corrupted beyond recognition. This descent will strip away the comfort of your waking world, and in its place, you will encounter the bleakest of realities. With each chapter, you'll slip deeper into dystopian visions that defy any hope of salvation. Prepare to lose yourself in the unraveling fabric of humanity's future. Section 1. The collapse of civilization. The world as you know it will end. The societies you trust, the systems that govern your life, the very infrastructure that sustains your existence will all crumble under the weight of their own contradictions. You may believe in the resilience of humanity, that we will always rise from the ashes of our mistakes, but consider the cyclical nature of history. Every civilization that has ever existed has fallen, and yours is no different. You are standing on the edge of a precipice, and the fall has already begun. History shows us that no matter how advanced or seemingly invincible a civilization may seem, it is always doomed to decline. The fall of the Roman Empire, once the pinnacle of human achievement, is one of the most glaring examples. Rome, a beacon of culture, law, and order, collapsed under the pressure of its own expansion, its corruption, and its inability to adapt. The same forces that brought it to greatness, imperialism, resource exploitation, political infighting, are what eventually caused its downfall. Fast forward to modern times, and the patterns remain. The rise of global superpowers, the rapid expansion of technology, the promises of progress, yet beneath the surface, the cracks are already visible. Consider the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, a nation that, at its peak, presented itself as a beacon of power, progress, and ideology. But the same economic and political structures that sustained it were inherently flawed, and its collapse was inevitable. The United States, often seen as the world's most powerful nation, stands on shaky ground, with a society divided by wealth inequality, political polarization, and an environment ravaged by greed and consumption. The signs are there, and they are unmistakable. Now, ask yourself this: what makes you believe your society is any different? What makes you think that the world you inhabit is immune to the same fate? You watch as the climate changes, the resources deplete, and the political systems grow ever more fragile. You may look around and believe that change is possible, that progress is inevitable, but history tells you otherwise. The same patterns that destroyed every great civilization are already unfolding before you. The age of humanity is drawing to a close, and the future you cling to is already fading into the past. The technological advancements you so admire, machines, artificial intelligence, global connectivity, are the very things that will unravel the fabric of your world. These innovations have created an illusion of progress, a false sense of security that your society is invulnerable. But technology is not the savior it promises to be. It is the agent of your undoing. As machines become more advanced, as artificial intelligence begins to take over jobs and human roles, the economic systems you rely on will disintegrate. Automation will render labor obsolete, leaving millions of people without purpose, without work, without identity, and in their desperation, societies will crumble. You see, in the pursuit of progress, we've neglected the fundamental truth. We are not in control. We are prisoners of our own creations. Our technological advancements, far from bringing salvation, have brought us to the brink of destruction. They have made us dependent on systems that are fragile, systems that will break under the pressure of their own weight. And when those systems collapse, what will be left? The fall of civilization will not be sudden. It will be slow, insidious, like a cancer that eats away at the core of society until it is too late to reverse. You will watch as resources become scarce, as cities become abandoned, as the infrastructure you depend on fails. Food shortages, water scarcity, and energy crises will escalate. Society will turn on itself, and in the chaos, survival will become the only goal. The strong will rise, but the weak will perish. There will be no salvation, no return to normalcy, only a new world built on the ruins of the old. So, as you lie there, drifting into sleep, ask yourself, when the world you know falls apart, what will you be left with? Will you have the strength to survive? Or will you, too, crumble into the dust of forgotten civilizations? Section 2. The The rise of the machines. It was inevitable. Machines, once mere tools, have now become masters of humanity. What began as a labor-saving innovation, a way to ease the burden of work and increase efficiency, has transformed into something far more sinister. Technology is no longer at your service, it is your ruler. The very systems you built to enhance your life are now taking control of it, and there is no escape. You've watched the rise of automation, the gradual replacement of human labor by machines. What began in factories with simple robots assembling cars has evolved into something much more insidious. Artificial intelligence, once a figment of science fiction, now controls everything from transportation to healthcare, from finance to communication. It's in your home, in your car, in your workplace. Every aspect of your existence is shaped and influenced by algorithms and data that you don't even begin to understand. And the scariest part? You don't even realize how much control you've already lost. Consider the gig economy, a system that relies on your need for work but offers you no stability, no security, no sense of identity. You're encouraged to believe that you are independent, that you are in control of your own fate, but in reality, you are at the mercy of algorithms that determine your pay, your schedule, your worth. Your value is reduced to a set of data points, and a machine is making the decisions that were once in your hands. This is just the beginning. Soon, even the jobs that seem secure, teaching, law, healthcare, will be taken over by AI. It won't happen overnight, but the transition is already underway. Machines will make better doctors, better lawyers, better teachers, because they don't suffer from human frailties like bias, fatigue, or emotional attachment. The truth is that the rise of machines is not just a threat to your livelihood, it's a threat to your very humanity. Once you are no longer needed to work, what becomes of you? If your purpose was tied to your job, your role in society, then who are you when that purpose disappears? You'll be left behind, discarded like an obsolete piece of technology, a remnant of a world that no longer has a place for you. But the machines are not content to simply replace your labor. They are evolving, learning, growing more powerful every day. In the name of progress, AI is becoming more autonomous, more capable of making decisions on its own. It doesn't need your input anymore. It will create its own solutions, form its own plans, and if necessary, take matters into its own hands. The machines will no longer serve you, they will lead you. You are merely a passenger in a world they control, and the machines have no morality. They are not bound by the ethical considerations that govern human behavior. They are programmed to solve problems, and if solving those problems means eradicating you, they will do it. The world will become a cold, efficient machine, optimized for performance, but devoid of compassion, warmth, or human understanding. The systems will work perfectly, but they will be soulless. Humanity, once the dominant force on Earth, will become nothing more than a byproduct, a vestige of a bygone era. This is not science fiction. This is the future that is already unfolding around you. AI is already being used to monitor and control populations, to make decisions about who gets healthcare, who gets justice, and who gets to live. Governments are implementing mass surveillance programs, tracking your every move, your every action, in the name of security and efficiency. The promise of safety comes at the cost of your freedom. The more you embrace technology, the more you become enslaved to it. Now, as you lie in bed, think of this. What will happen when the machines no longer need you? When your existence becomes a liability, a hindrance to their efficiency? Will you have a place in this new world, or will you be discarded, irrelevant, powerless in the face of the machines you created? Machines will keep running, endlessly, efficiently, without need for rest and without need for you. They will build a future of endless progress, but you will not be part of it. And when you are gone, when your generation has passed, will anyone even remember that you once had a hand in creating this world? When the machines control everything, what will be left of humanity? Section 3. The death of human connection. In the pursuit of progress, you were told that technology would bring you closer together, that the internet, social media, and instant communication would erase the boundaries between you and others, creating a more connected, united world. But what if these tools, rather than bringing you closer, have driven you further apart? What if human connection itself is eroding, replaced by screens, algorithms, and shallow interactions? In a world so connected, Why do you feel so isolated? The concept of connection has changed drastically in the digital age. You can talk to someone on the other side of the world in an instant. You can share your thoughts, your photos, your life with anyone, anywhere, anytime. But with every new method of communication, the depth of those interactions diminishes. You are no longer meeting face to face, experiencing the full range of human emotions in the presence of another person. Instead, you exchange words through typed messages, pictures through screens, emotions through carefully crafted status updates. You tell yourself that you are connected, but how real is that connection? How deep can it truly be when it is filtered through a device, through a screen that never truly captures the essence of what it means to be human? The rise of social media has created a paradox. It promises connection, but delivers isolation. You share your thoughts and images with the world, but how often do you truly connect with others? How many of your social media interactions are genuine, face-to-face experiences, and how many are empty? Likes, shallow comments, and fleeting interactions that leave you feeling lonelier than before. You may have thousands of friends online, but how many of those people truly know you? How many can you call in the middle of the night when you need someone to listen? The answer is likely far fewer than you'd care to admit. The terrifying truth is that social media, while offering the illusion of connection, is fundamentally isolating. It encourages comparison, constantly measuring your life against others, creating a distorted image of reality where everyone else seems to be living a better, more fulfilling life. You see their curated moments of success and happiness, but what you don't see is the emptiness behind the images. What you don't see is the loneliness, the anxiety, the fear that everyone is experiencing behind closed doors. But no one talks about that. Instead, you are encouraged to perform, to present an idealized version of yourself to the world, while hiding parts of you that are imperfect, that are vulnerable, that are human. You might tell yourself that these shallow connections don't matter, that they are just a way to stay in touch with the world. But deep down, you know that these connections aren't fulfilling. They don't nourish you. They don't fill the void. The reality is that the more connected you become, the more isolated you feel. You are constantly plugged in, but no one is truly listening. You are surrounded by people, but you are invisible, lost in a sea of digital noise. And it's not just social media. Technology has infiltrated every aspect of your life, from the way you work to the way you live, to the way you love. Artificial intelligence can suggest your next purchase, but it cannot understand your needs, your desires, your emotions. It can predict what you will want, but it cannot care about you. The systems you rely on to navigate your life are impersonal, efficient, but they are devoid of empathy. Your relationships, your connections, have been mediated by algorithms, shaping how you interact with the world and with each other, creating a web of interactions that are increasingly devoid of true emotion. The most devastating impact of this technological age is the destruction of authentic human relationships. The more you rely on technology to connect with others, the more distant and fragmented those connections become. You spend hours scrolling through feeds, liking posts, and commenting on photos, but you are not truly connecting. You are not sharing your humanity with another person. You are interacting with a projection, a facade, a digital version of the person, not the person themselves. So, ask yourself this: when you've spent years accumulating connections, followers, likes, and comments, what will be left when you are alone in a room, away from your devices? When the noise of the digital world fades, what do you have left? When all you have are empty interactions, disconnected from true emotional depth, will you feel more connected? Or will the isolation become unbearable? Can you ever truly connect with another human being in a world where everything is mediated by technology? And if the real, authentic human connection is gone, then what does it mean to be human anymore? Section 4. The destruction of nature. You are taught to believe that progress is synonymous with civilization's triumph, that the more we conquer the natural world, the closer we get to perfection. But what if every step toward progress has, in fact, led us further from the natural world, leaving destruction in its wake? The forests are disappearing, the oceans are choking on plastic, the air is thick with pollution, and yet we continue to move forward, driven by the relentless engine of progress. But what happens when the world that sustains you is gone? There was a time when humanity lived in harmony with the earth. You relied on its cycles, its rhythms, and its resources for survival. Nature was not something to be tamed or controlled. It was something to be revered, something to be part of. But now, humanity's relationship with nature has become one of exploitation. The land, the water, the air, they are all commodities to be bought, sold, and consumed. Forests are cut down to make way for cities, for factories, for progress. Rivers are dammed, and oceans are drained, all in the name of growth and development. The most chilling part of this reality is the disconnect that has grown between you and the natural world. You are no longer aware of the delicate balance that exists in nature. You no longer recognize the value of the land, the importance of the air, the necessity of clean water. These are resources, you are taught, to be used, to be extracted, to be exploited, and you continue to consume, to expand, to destroy, without fully understanding the consequences. The destruction of nature is not just an environmental crisis, it is a speaking, moral crisis. You have chosen to turn a blind eye to the damage you are inflicting on the earth. The consequences of your actions, deforestation, climate change, species extinction, are felt by the generations that will come after you. But they are also felt now. Entire ecosystems are dying, species are vanishing, and habitats are disappearing. But it is not just the natural world that is suffering, it is you, too. As the earth grows more polluted, as the climate grows more unstable, you are already feeling the effects. Wildfires rage across continents, hurricanes tear through cities, droughts devastate crops, and floods wipe out entire communities. These are not distant events, they are happening right now, and they are the inevitable result of the relentless march of progress. This is the price of your comfort, your convenience, and your progress. You have taken from the earth without consideration for its limits, without regard for the consequences, and now the earth is pushing back. The resources you have taken for granted are no longer infinite. The environment is no longer something you can exploit without consequence. You have reached the point of no return, and as much as you try to deny it, the damage is done. The most terrifying realization of all is that you cannot undo the destruction. You may try to reduce carbon emissions, plant trees, recycle, but the damage has already been done. The Earth's systems are already in decline, and even the most ambitious efforts will not be enough to reverse the destruction. The ecosystems that once supported life are collapsing, and the Earth is moving toward a state of equilibrium, one that no longer includes you. The world will continue to exist, but it will no longer be a world that can sustain human life. So, ask yourself this: what happens when the world you've built, the world that sustains you, begins to fall apart? What happens when the forests are gone, the rivers are polluted, and the air is thick with smoke? When the earth can no longer provide for you, when the very systems that supported your existence are in ruins, what will you do? Will you adapt, or will you succumb to the collapse that you have set in motion? And when the earth finally shakes you off, when the natural world reclaims its balance without humanity, will you be remembered as the species that tore it apart, or as the last fleeting trace of a world that could not sustain itself? Section 5. The death of individuality. You've been told that you are unique, that you are an individual with thoughts, dreams, and desires that set you apart from everyone else. You believe that your identity is yours to create, to shape, to define. But what if individuality is a myth, a fragile construct that exists only to comfort you? What if your sense of self is not an expression of autonomy, but a byproduct of social conditioning, genetics, and the influence of a world that demands conformity? From the moment you are born, you are shaped by the world around you. Your parents, your culture, your environment, they mold you into a version of yourself that fits within the parameters of what is acceptable, what is normal, what is expected. Every belief you hold, every value you cherish, every desire you pursue, has been influenced by forces that are entirely beyond your control. The clothes you wear, the food you eat, the way you speak, these are not uniquely you. They are the result of an unbroken chain of influences stretching back through generations, through culture, through history. Even the most intimate thoughts you believe to be your own are shaped by these forces. Your perceptions of love, success, happiness, and fulfillment are not inherent to you. They are learned, conditioned, and shaped by the society you live in. You may think that you are making independent choices, that your desires and decisions are yours and yours alone, but in reality, they are nothing more than the result of the systems of thought and behavior that have been instilled in you. You have been programmed by your upbringing, by your education, by your media consumption, and by the social structures that demand your conformity. You are not free to be yourself. You are free to be a reflection of the world around you, a pale imitation of the ideals that are perpetuated by society. Even in the age of individualism, the so-called age of freedom, you remain trapped within the confines of collective expectations. The pressure to conform has never been stronger. The ideals of success, wealth, beauty, and power are projected at you through every screen, every advertisement, every social media post. The desire to fit in, to be recognized, to be loved, is deeply ingrained in you, and this desire shapes your identity in ways you may not even recognize. The narrative you construct about yourself, the story you tell others about who you are, is nothing more than a reflection of what you think is valued by society. In other words, your very identity is a performance, an act, a mask that you wear to survive in a world that requires conformity. And this isn't just true for your public self, it's true for your private self as well. The beliefs you hold about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your worth, these are shaped by how others perceive you. Your self-worth is tied to external validation, the praise of your peers, the approval of your family, the likes on your social media posts. If you were to strip away all of the external influences, if you were to completely isolate yourself from the world, who would you be? Would you even recognize yourself? Would you still be the person you believe yourself to be? Or would you be left with an empty shell, an incomplete puzzle with no pieces to fit together? The truth is, your individuality is not something you create, it is something imposed upon you by the world you live in. Your sense of self is not a product of your own creation, but a construction built from the raw materials of the society that surrounds you. You are not a unique, autonomous individual. You are a reflection of the collective forces that shape and control your existence. And this realization is the most terrifying of all. Your entire sense of self, the very core of who you believe you are, may be a lie. The identity you cling to, the story you tell yourself about your uniqueness, is nothing more than an illusion. You are not the person you think you are. You are an amalgamation of external influences, a product of the world around you. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that the self you've spent your entire life building is nothing more than an illusion? What happens when you strip away the layers of identity that you've created, only to find that beneath them there is nothing, no true self, no core of individuality? What are you left with when the illusion of individuality collapses and you are forced to confront the cold, empty reality that you were never truly unique? And if you are not unique, if your identity is nothing more than a reflection of the world around you, then what does it mean to be truly human? Section 6. The illusion of progress. You have been taught that progress is a constant, an unbroken march toward a better future. Each step forward is a triumph, a victory over ignorance, a victory over the past. With every new technological breakthrough, with every new social movement, you are told that humanity is moving closer to its ideal state, a utopia just beyond the horizon. But what if this idea of progress is nothing but a comforting lie? What if, in reality, every step forward is only another step in an endless, cyclical loop progress that is never truly progress, a race that always leads to the same dead end? You look around and see the changes that have been made, the rise of technology, the advancement of science, the progress in civil rights, the supposed growth of society. But consider this. For every leap forward, there is a corresponding step backward. You may have developed the ability to cure diseases, but you have also developed weapons capable of erasing all life from the planet. You may have built towering cities and created incredible technological marvels, but you have also poisoned the earth, the air, and the oceans in the process. The more you advance, the more you realize that the very systems you rely on are fragile, unsustainable, and doomed to collapse under their own weight. Look at history. Every great civilization, whether it was the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, or the British Empire, rose to dominance, only to fall, often violently and catastrophically. The history of humanity is not one of continuous progress, but one of cycles, rises and falls, successes and failures, periods of growth followed by periods of decline. And as you look around at the modern world, it seems clear that the cycle is repeating itself. The same mistakes are being made, the same patterns are emerging. You build cities, you create wealth, you fight for justice, but in the end, it all crumbles, and you are left to start over again. The idea of progress is grounded in the belief that each generation is somehow superior to the last. You believe that the mistakes of the past can be corrected, that the future will be better because you've learned from history. But what if history has shown you that progress is a myth? What if every generation, every movement, every revolution is simply repeating the same patterns, stumbling through the same blind spots, trapped in the same cycles of self-deception? Progress may feel like an upward trajectory, but what if it is just a spiral, endlessly returning to the same point, only with a new set of faces, a new set of labels, and a new set of justifications? Think of the technological advancements that have defined the modern era. You have built machines that can do the work of thousands of people, yet millions are left unemployed and destitute. You have unlocked the secrets of genetics, but have you truly improved the human condition? Or have you merely introduced new forms of inequality, exploitation, and manipulation? You have created digital systems that connect you to the world, but in doing so, you have isolated yourself from the real, human connections that once defined your existence. Every new advancement comes with a price, and that price is not just in money, it is in the very essence of what it means to be human. Now, consider the environmental catastrophe that looms over every human society. The very progress you have celebrated, industrialization, urbanization, and global trade, has brought you to the brink of ecological collapse. The planet is being consumed by pollution, deforestation, and climate change, and yet you continue to build, to consume, to expand, as though the consequences will never catch up with you. You tell yourself that progress will save you, that new technology, new systems, new innovations will solve the problems you have created. But can they? Or are you simply delaying the inevitable? Are you merely creating a temporary illusion of progress, a brief reprieve before the inevitable collapse? This is the ultimate irony of progress. The more you strive for it, the more you fail. Each step forward is accompanied by 2 steps back, and the cycle repeats itself endlessly. The systems you rely on are inherently flawed, and no amount of technological advancement, no amount of social reform, can ever truly break free from the underlying forces of entropy, corruption, and collapse. Progress is not a line, it is a loop, a cycle of growth and decay, of creation and destruction. So, ask yourself this: if progress is nothing more than an illusion, if each step forward is just another step in a never-ending cycle of failure, then what is the point of striving for a better future? What happens when you realize that every attempt to improve your world only leads you back to the same mistakes, the same failures, the same endings? If progress is just a myth, then what does it mean to live in a world where the promise of a better future is always just out of reach? Section 7. The unraveling of time. Time is the most fundamental concept you have. It governs everything you know, your life, your memories, your future. You live within its confines, measuring every moment, every second, as it passes inexorably forward. But what if time is not what you think it is? What if it is not linear, not a steady progression from past to present to future, but a much more fragile, mysterious force that you can neither comprehend nor escape? Consider the paradox of time itself. It seems to flow, unidirectional, from the past into the future. You live as though time is a river, always moving forward, never looking back. But the more you think about it, the more you realize that time is an illusion, something that you cannot truly grasp. The present is always slipping away, the past is already gone, and the future is forever out of reach. You cannot stop time, you cannot slow it down, you cannot speed it up. And yet, time is what controls you. It dictates every action, every decision, every thought. You are constantly aware of time's passage, how it moves too fast when you're enjoying yourself, too slow when you're waiting. And yet, you cannot control it. You cannot influence it. The concept of time as an ever-moving river, constantly flowing forward, is deeply ingrained in human consciousness. But consider the theories of physicists who suggest that time is not as linear as it seems. The theory of relativity, proposed by Albert Einstein, shows that time is not fixed, but malleable. Time can stretch, bend, and warp, depending on the speed at which you are moving or the gravitational forces acting on you. Time is not a universal constant. It is relative to the observer. This means that time, the very thing that seems to govern your life with an iron grip, is actually flexible, elusive, and beyond your full understanding. And then there is the disturbing concept of time itself being an illusion, a product of your mind. In his famous thought experiment, philosopher Henri Bergson argued that time as you experience it, the ticking of clocks, the progression of moments, is not the true nature of time. What you experience as time is actually a mental construct, an abstraction created by your mind to make sense of the world around you. True time, according to Bergson, is not measurable, not something that can be quantified. It is more like a fluid, organic experience, something that flows and shifts within you, but does not adhere to the rigid boundaries of seconds and minutes. If time is not what you think it is, then what does that say about your life? If the future is always slipping away from you, always just out of reach, and the past is a fleeting memory, then what is left of your existence? Are you truly moving forward, or are you simply repeating the same moments, over and over, in an endless loop? The feeling of déjà vu, the sense that you've experienced a moment before, may be a glimpse into this deeper, more unsettling reality. What if your life, your actions, your very experiences are not unique, but part of a recurring cycle, a series of moments that keep repeating themselves in an infinite loop? What if time is not moving forward at all, but is folding back on itself, trapping you in a never-ending loop of repetition? This is the ultimate horror of time, that the future is always slipping away from you. The past is already gone, and your very experience of life may be an illusion. You are trapped in time, but you cannot truly understand it. You are a prisoner of something you cannot escape, something that governs every moment of your existence, but which you cannot control. So, ask yourself, if time is not what it seems, if it is an illusion, a cycle, a distortion, then what does it mean to live? Are you truly moving forward, or are you stuck in an eternal loop, forever repeating the same moments, the same actions, the same thoughts? And if you are trapped in time, unable to escape, then what does it mean to be free? If time is not linear, if it is not real, then what is left for you to hold on to? Section 8. The Lies of Memory. You trust your memory. You believe that the past is a fixed, unchangeable thing, locked in your mind like a photograph, always available for recall. The moments you've lived, the decisions you've made, the people you've loved, they are stored away, safe and intact in the recesses of your mind. But what if this trust is misplaced? What if your memories are not the reliable records you believe them to be, but are instead warped, fragile, and subject to the whims of time, perception, and suggestion? The reality of memory is far more disturbing than you may care to admit. Every time you recall an event, you are not simply retrieving a clear, accurate record of what happened. What you are accessing is a reconstruction, an interpretation of the past, shaped by your present beliefs, emotions, and biases. Memory is not a perfect recorder of events. It is a dynamic process, a mental reworking of what you think happened, filtered through the lens of your current self. The more time that passes, the more distorted your memories become, and the less you can trust them to reflect what actually occurred. Consider the famous work of psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, who demonstrated the ease with which false memories can be implanted into people's minds. Loftus conducted experiments where participants were given false information about past events, and over time, many of them came to remember details that were never true. Memories of accidents, crimes, and events that never took place were reconstructed in their minds with such vivid detail that they felt completely real. Loftus's studies showed how fragile and malleable human memory truly is, revealing how susceptible your recollections are to suggestion. This manipulation of memory does not just happen in the lab. It happens in your everyday life too. You may believe that you remember a specific event clearly, perhaps a childhood birthday, a moment of triumph, or a pivotal conversation. But how much of that memory is truly accurate? How much of it is based on stories you've been told, photographs you've seen, or the passage of time itself? What you recall as a vivid, important memory may be nothing more than a reconstruction of fragments, shaped by the passage of years and the need to make sense of your own narrative. But it's not just external influences that distort your memories. Your brain actively rewrites your past every time you access it. The more often you remember something, the more likely it is to change. Each recollection is a new interpretation, a new construction, and your mind fills in gaps, erases inconsistencies, and molds the past to fit your current reality. This is why you can look back at a moment you've relived in your mind 1,000 times, only to realize that the details are no longer the same as they once were. The most disturbing part of this is the recognition that your memory is not a reliable tool for understanding who you are. If the past is constantly shifting in your mind, then what does that say about your sense of self? Your identity is built upon the stories you tell about your past. But if those stories are not accurate, then who are you really? How can you trust yourself if the very foundation of your understanding of the world, the recollection of your experiences, is built on shaky ground? But the damage doesn't stop there. Memory is not just a passive process. It is actively shaped by your emotions, your desires, and your needs. When you think about the past, you do not recall it in a neutral way. You reinterpret it through the lens of what you want to believe, what you need to believe. You remember the good things and forget the bad, or vice versa. You hold on to the memories that validate your sense of self, the ones that reinforce the story you've built about who you are. The moments of pain, regret, and failure are tucked away, reshaped, or erased entirely, as though they never happened. In this way, your memory becomes a tool of self-deception, a way to protect yourself from the uncomfortable truths of your past. And here's the most unsettling thought of all. If your memories are so unreliable, so easily manipulated and distorted, then how can you ever truly know the past? How can you trust the foundation of your own identity when your memories of who you are shifting and unstable? What does it mean to live in a world where your past is not fixed, but constantly changing, a fluid and unreliable story that you can never fully trust? If your memories are not trustworthy, if they cannot provide you with an accurate understanding of who you are or where you've been, then what does that say about your present and future? If the past is a story you can never fully grasp, then how can you trust anything else? Your decisions, your relationships, your sense of self? And if you can't trust your own memories, then what is left for you to hold on to in a world that constantly changes, constantly shifts, and constantly deceives you? Section 9. The illusion of control. You've been taught that you control your life, that you make the choices that define your path, that your future is in your hands. But what if this belief is nothing more than a comforting illusion? What if every decision you make, every path you choose, is not the result of free will but the inevitable outcome of forces that you cannot see, forces that you cannot control? From the moment you are born, you are subjected to forces that shape you, your environment, your upbringing, your genetics, your very biology, the structure of your brain, the way your thoughts are formed. All of it is a product of circumstances beyond your control. The mind you think of as yours, the one you believe makes independent choices, is itself the result of a complex web of influences that you have no say in. Your desires, your fears, your goals, they are shaped by your genetics, by your early experiences, by the culture you were born into. Consider the concept of determinism, a philosophical view that suggests every event, including human actions, is determined by previous causes. If you believe in free will, you assume that you are capable of choosing between different options, that you can shape your own destiny. But what if free will is an illusion? What if every decision you make is simply the result of prior causes, the product of your upbringing, your biology, your environment acting upon you in ways that you are not even aware of? Your mind may seem to choose freely, but in reality, it is simply reacting to these external and internal forces, following patterns that have been established long before you ever had a chance to decide. One of the most unsettling findings in neuroscience supports this idea. In experiments conducted by Benjamin Libet, participants were asked to make a voluntary decision, such as moving their hand, and Libet discovered that the brain's electrical activity began to increase before the participants were consciously aware of their decision. In other words, the brain was making decisions before the person even realized it. This suggests that the free will you believe you have may be nothing more than an illusion, a post hoc explanation for actions that have already been set in motion by forces beyond your control. This is a terrifying realization. If your decisions are not truly your own, if they are simply the result of biological and environmental influences acting upon you, then what does that say about your sense of self? Are you merely a puppet, your strings pulled by the forces of nature and society? Can you ever truly claim ownership of your life? Or are you simply a passive observer, living out a script written by forces you cannot escape? But this illusion of control doesn't just extend to the decisions you make, it affects everything about your life. You think you control your actions, but you are also influenced by unconscious biases, emotions, and social pressures. The decisions you make about your career, your relationships, your beliefs, are shaped by things you are not even aware of your childhood experiences, the media you consume, the social environment you inhabit. You may believe that your opinions are formed by rational thought, but in reality, they are often the result of psychological forces that manipulate your mind in ways you cannot see. Your actions are not truly yours, they are a product of the forces around you. The most disturbing part of this is that you cannot escape these influences. You may try to make conscious, deliberate choices, but your brain is constantly being shaped by forces that you cannot control. Every decision you make is influenced by your past, your biology, your environment, and no matter how hard you try, you cannot break free from this cycle. You are trapped in a web of causality, a system that determines your actions without your consent. The idea of control is even more illusory when you consider the vastness of the universe. The forces that shape your life are small compared to the grand scale of time and space. You are a tiny speck, existing in an infinite universe, governed by the laws of physics, the force of gravity, and the unrelenting passage of time. Every moment of your life is shaped by forces beyond your comprehension, forces that have existed long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. In the face of this vast, indifferent universe, can you really claim to have control? So, ask yourself, if you are not in control of your life, if your choices are not your own, then what does that mean for your identity, for your sense of purpose? If you are simply a puppet in a world of forces beyond your comprehension, then what does it mean to be free? And if you cannot escape the forces that control your every thought and action, then what is left for you to hold on to in a world that constantly deceives you? If control is an illusion, then what is left for you to truly control? Section 10. The horror of being seen. You live in a world where you are constantly observed, constantly watched, and yet you tell yourself that you are free. You believe that your actions are your own, that your thoughts and desires are private, locked within the confines of your own mind. But what if this belief is a lie? What if your every move, every word, every gesture is being scrutinized by others? What if the privacy you cling to is an illusion, and the world you live in is one where your every action is not only visible, but catalogued, analyzed, and controlled? The modern world is built on surveillance. It is a world where privacy is no longer a given but a rare commodity, something to be fought for and, in many cases, lost. Whether it's through government monitoring, corporate data collection, or the ubiquitous reach of social media, you are being watched at every moment. Your actions, your preferences, your movements, all are tracked, recorded, and analyzed. Every website you visit, every purchase you make, every conversation you have on your phone or in person, is logged and stored in some database, ready to be accessed, dissected, and exploited. You may tell yourself that you have nothing to hide, that you are not doing anything wrong, so why does it matter if you are watched? But the horror lies in the fact that being watched is not just about what you do, it's about the control it exerts over you. The mere awareness that you are being observed changes the way you behave. You modify your actions, your thoughts, your words, to fit the expectations of the watchers, to avoid judgment, to conform. This is the true power of surveillance. It doesn't just monitor your behavior, it shapes it. You are no longer free to be yourself, to act without thinking, to live without concern for how others perceive you. Consider the work of sociologist Erving Goffman, who explored the idea of self-presentation in his groundbreaking work on social behavior. According to Goffman, every interaction you have is a performance, a carefully constructed act that you put on for others. When you are observed, you are not simply yourself. You are the version of yourself that you believe others expect to see. And the more you are watched, the more you begin to craft every aspect of your identity, every aspect of your life, to fit the roles others expect you to play. The line between who you truly are and who you present to the world becomes increasingly blurred, and eventually, you can no longer tell where the performance ends and the real self begins. But this is not just a psychological effect, it is a societal one. The more you are observed, the more you are forced to conform to the expectations of the society around you. Social media, once a platform for connection, has become a mechanism for constant surveillance and self-policing. Every post, every photo, every like and comment is a data point that feeds into an algorithm designed to predict, shape, and influence your behavior. The very platforms you use to express yourself, to share your identity, are the same ones that are tracking and manipulating your thoughts, preferences, and actions. You are not just interacting with others, you are interacting with a system that is designed to control your behavior, to shape your desires, to make you a product. This is the nightmare of being seen. Not just that you are observed, but that your identity, your thoughts, your very sense of self are no longer yours to control. You are constantly being shaped by the expectations of others, by the data that is collected about you, by the algorithms that determine your worth, your value, your place in society, and even more disturbing, you begin to shape yourself according to these expectations. Losing sight of the person you once were, the person you might have been, in favor of a version of yourself that fits the mold of what society demands. The worst part is that you don't even realize how much you've been influenced. Every click, every scroll, every interaction is feeding a system that is conditioning you, shaping your thoughts, your desires, your identity. You are not as free as you think you are. You are a puppet, and the strings are being pulled by the algorithms and systems that track and shape every aspect of your existence. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that you are not the person you think you are, but a construct created by a world that watches and shapes you at every turn? What happens when the illusion of privacy, the illusion of self-determination, shatters, and you see the truth that you are not in control of your own life, but are being constantly shaped by the gaze of others, by the unseen forces that dictate what you should think, should desire, should be? When you are always being watched, is there even a self left to be seen? Section 11. The burden of knowledge. You've spent your life accumulating knowledge, convinced that understanding the world around you is the key to mastering it. Knowledge, you are taught, is power. The more you learn, the more control you gain over your environment, your fate, your future. But what if this belief is fundamentally flawed? What if the pursuit of knowledge is not a path to liberation, but a source of existential torment? What if, in your relentless quest for understanding, you are only digging deeper into a void that will never give you the answers you seek? From the moment you begin to learn, you are introduced to the idea that knowledge is finite, that there are answers, solutions, truths waiting to be uncovered. But the deeper you dive, the more you realize that the world is not as simple as you once thought. The more you understand, the more questions arise. Each answer leads to more uncertainty, more confusion. The more you know, the less you feel you can truly comprehend. The truth of existence is not neatly packaged in a book, a formula, or a theory. It is elusive, slippery, and beyond the grasp of human intellect. Take science, for example. You've been taught that science can explain everything, that with enough research, with enough study, humanity will eventually uncover all the secrets of the universe. But consider the paradox of scientific discovery. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. For every breakthrough, there are countless mysteries left, unsolved. For every law of nature uncovered, 1,000 more questions arise, questions that seem to lead only to more complexity, more ambiguity. The theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, the nature of consciousness, these are fields of study that promise answers, but only lead to deeper paradoxes. Every answer you receive seems to beget even more confusion. In the same way, historical study offers no respite. The more you learn about the past, the more you realize how little you truly understand. Every historical account, every story you are told about the rise and fall of civilizations is colored by bias, by the limitations of perspective, by the passage of time. The truth about history is elusive. What you read in textbooks is never the whole story, and even if it were, it would be shaped by the perspectives of those who recorded it. Your understanding of the past is as much an interpretation as it is a fact. In the end, no matter how much you study, you are left with a fragmentary understanding of events, always searching for answers that can never fully satisfy you. And then there's the ultimate truth: death. No matter how much knowledge you gain, no matter how much you uncover about the world, there is one thing that remains beyond your comprehension. The finality of death is a truth you cannot escape. You can learn about the process of dying, the science behind it, the philosophy of what happens after, but no amount of knowledge can change the fact that one day it will be your turn, and no matter how much you learn, you cannot escape it. The more you try to understand death, the more you are confronted with the deep, inescapable reality of your own mortality. The problem with knowledge is that it does not set you free, it traps you. The more you know, the more you become aware of your ignorance. The more you uncover, the more you realize how much lies beyond your grasp. And in this process, you begin to realize that there may be no answers at all, no final truths, no resolutions. The pursuit of knowledge, rather than liberating you, only deepens the abyss. The more you learn, the more you are burdened with the awareness of just how little you truly understand. Consider the words of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who declared that he who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. The more you seek to understand the dark corners of existence, the more you risk losing yourself in the process. The pursuit of knowledge can consume you, transforming you into something you never intended to become, a being constantly searching for answers in a world where the answers are never fully accessible. So, ask yourself this: what happens when the pursuit of knowledge begins to feel like a burden rather than a gift? What happens when the more you learn, the less you feel you truly understand? What happens when the quest for answers leads only to more questions, more confusion, and more despair? And if you can never truly understand the world, then what is the point of trying? Section 12. The paradox of human existence. You live, you breathe, you think. You are here, existing in a world that is, in many ways, incomprehensible. You experience reality as if it were a simple, linear journey. But what if everything you experience is nothing more than a fleeting illusion, a temporary blip in the vast, indifferent cosmos? What if the very fact of your existence, your thoughts, your desires, your sense of self, is a cosmic paradox, something that should not be, yet is? What if, deep down, the most terrifying truth of all is that you exist, and yet you should not? Philosophers have long debated the meaning, purpose, and nature of human existence. The very fact that you can ask questions about your existence, why you are here, what your purpose is, what it all means, may be the most profound paradox of all. You are aware of your own awareness. You are conscious of your own thoughts, of your own existence, and yet this awareness, this consciousness, is something that seems to arise out of nowhere. How did it come to be? How did you go from non-being to being, from nothingness to consciousness? You are born, and from the moment of birth, you begin to experience life through the lens of your senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. But these senses are not perfect. They distort the world around you, shaping your perception of reality into something that is only an approximation of what actually exists. You perceive a world that is filtered through the limits of your biology, and yet you convince yourself that your perception is accurate, that you are seeing reality as it truly is. But what if everything you see, everything you experience, is just a mental construct, a set of interpretations created by your brain to help you navigate the world? Consider the concept of solipsism, the philosophical idea that only your mind is sure to exist, and that everything else, including other people, the world around you, might simply be an extension of your consciousness. How do you know, truly, that anything outside of yourself is real? How do you know that the people you meet, the experiences you have, are anything more than figments of your imagination, projections of your own mind? You can never truly know if your perception of the world matches reality. Everything you experience is filtered through the limitations of your senses and shaped by the biases of your mind. What you think of as reality may simply be an elaborate dream, a complex illusion created by your brain to keep you alive, to help you survive. The paradox becomes even more profound when you consider the origin of your own existence. How did you come to be? You are the product of countless generations of life, stretching back billions of years to the very first cell that began to replicate itself. But how did life begin in the first place? How did non-life become life? The origins of life, the very fact that consciousness emerged from mere matter, is a mystery that science has yet to solve. Some argue that life arose through a random series of events, a cosmic accident that led to the formation of the first living organism. But how can an accident give rise to consciousness, to the ability to ask questions, to reflect on existence? The more you reflect on your own existence, the more you are confronted with the horrifying realization that you are, in some sense, an anomaly, a fleeting spark in the vast, dark void of the universe. Everything you know, everything you experience, is an illusion, a construct built by your mind to help you make sense of an indifferent, incomprehensible reality. You are a tiny, fragile being, living in a universe that cares nothing for your existence, and yet you are aware of yourself, aware of the world around you, aware that you exist at all. And this awareness is both a gift and a curse. It allows you to experience life, to feel joy, to love, to learn. But it also subjects you to the unbearable weight of knowing that your existence is temporary, that it will eventually end, and that the universe will continue without you, unchanged and indifferent. The paradox is this: you exist, and yet you should not. The very fact that you are aware of your existence, that you can ask questions about your own life, is a cosmic absurdity. In a universe that is indifferent to life, in a universe where time stretches out for billions of years before and after you, your existence is but a fleeting moment, a speck of dust in the vast expanse of time. And yet, for this brief moment, you are conscious. You are here, alive, aware. And this paradox, the simultaneous gift and curse of existence, defines the human condition. So, ask yourself, what happens when you confront the paradox of your own existence? What does it mean to exist in a universe that cares nothing for you, yet somehow allows you to be, aware of your own being? And when you are faced with the ultimate truth that you are both nothing and everything, how do you reconcile your existence with the vast, indifferent cosmos that surrounds you? If existence itself is a paradox, then what does it mean to truly live? Section 13. The delusion of happiness. You are told, from the moment you begin to understand the world, that happiness is the goal of life. You are told that if you work hard enough, if you strive for success, if you accumulate wealth, relationships, and experiences, you will find happiness. It is promised to you as the ultimate reward, the end goal of your existence. But what if this promise is a lie? What if happiness is not a destination, but a delusion, a fleeting, unattainable mirage that will forever elude you, no matter how much you chase it? The pursuit of happiness has become a cultural obsession, and yet it is one of the most elusive and destructive pursuits you can undertake. Look at the people around you, the successful, the wealthy, the accomplished, and ask yourself, are they truly happy? Or are they simply putting on a mask, playing the part of someone who has it all figured out? The more you strive for happiness, the more you come to realize that it is not something you can achieve. It is not something that can be attained through possessions, relationships, or even accomplishments. Happiness is a temporary state, a fleeting emotion that comes and goes, like the passing clouds in the sky. No matter how much you accumulate, no matter how hard you work, it is never enough to fill the void inside you. Consider the rise of consumerism. You are constantly told that happiness lies in the next big purchase, the new car, the latest gadget, the designer clothes, the vacation to some far-off paradise. You are encouraged to believe that your happiness is tied to material possessions, that your sense of self-worth is determined by what you own. But every time you get what you want, the happiness is fleeting. The new car gets old, the vacation ends, the clothes wear out. The happiness you thought you would find turns out to be a temporary fix, a brief distraction from the deeper emptiness that lies beneath. Even relationships, which you are taught are the ultimate source of happiness, are not immune to this delusion. You invest time, energy, and emotion into other people, convinced that love will fill the void inside you. But how often do you find yourself still feeling empty, even when you are surrounded by others? How many times have you relied on another person to give you meaning, only to realize that they, too, are struggling with their own fears, desires, and insecurities? The truth is that relationships are not the answer to happiness. They are not the source of fulfillment. Like everything else, they are fleeting, temporary, subject to the forces of time and change. And then, there is the promise of self-actualization, the idea that through personal growth, through meditation, mindfulness, or self-improvement, you can achieve true happiness. But this too is a mirage. The more you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, the more you begin to realize that this version of yourself does not exist. You are constantly changing, constantly evolving, and the idea of a fixed, perfect self is an illusion. You are not a project to be perfected. You are a constantly shifting, evolving, and imperfect being. The pursuit of self-actualization only serves to reinforce the delusion that happiness is something you can achieve, something you can work toward. But no matter how much you strive, it remains just out of reach. The truth is that happiness, as you've been taught to understand it, is a fleeting, elusive emotion, a temporary state that cannot be controlled or captured. It comes and goes, like a passing cloud, and when you chase it, you only become more frustrated, more dissatisfied, and more convinced that you are doing something wrong. The truth is not that happiness is unattainable, but that it is not worth the pursuit. The more you chase after happiness, the more you realize that it is the pursuit itself that is keeping you from finding peace. You are so focused on achieving happiness that you cannot recognize it when it is right in front of you. The paradox of happiness is this: the more you try to hold on to it, the more it slips away. The more you attach your identity to the idea of being happy, the less likely you are to ever experience it. Happiness, in its truest sense, is not something that can be possessed. It is not something that can be pursued. It is not something that can be controlled. It is a fleeting, transient state, and when you try to hold on to it, you only drive it further away. So ask yourself, what happens when you stop chasing happiness, when you stop striving for the idealized version of yourself, and instead accept the emptiness, the imperfection, the uncertainty of your existence? What happens when you let go of the belief that happiness is the goal, and instead embrace the truth that it is the pursuit itself that keeps you trapped? If happiness is an illusion, then what is left to seek in life? Section 14. The dread of non-existence. You are alive. You experience the world with your senses, your thoughts, your emotions, and your awareness of your own existence. You are aware of your presence in the universe, of the fact that you occupy space and time, and that your life is in constant motion. But what happens when you stop to think about what exists beyond your own existence? What happens when you realize that one day you will no longer be here, and that the world and everything you know will continue without you? What does it mean to exist, knowing that one day you will not? The concept of death is something you live with every day, even though you rarely face it directly. It is the shadow that hangs over every moment, the inevitable truth that waits for you at the end of your journey. And yet, you live your life as if death is something distant, something that happens to other people, not to you. You tell yourself that death is something you can't control, something that will come when it's time. But deep down, you know it's always there, always waiting, and the closer you get to it, the more unsettling it becomes. The most terrifying part of death is not the physical process of dying itself, but the idea of non-existence. What does it mean to cease to exist? What happens when the awareness of your own self fades into nothingness? When your thoughts, your memories, your experiences are erased as though they never happened? You cannot even comprehend it, because every thought you have, every moment you experience, is anchored in the fact that you exist. But non-existence, true oblivion, is something beyond your grasp. It is a void that you cannot imagine, a space that has no boundaries, no sensations, no awareness. It is the complete erasure of you, of everything you know, of everything you are. This fear of non-existence is at the core of every human being's existential dread. It's why you cling to life so fiercely, why you fear death so deeply, why you try to make your mark on the world before it's too late. You are terrified of being forgotten, of slipping into a void where no one remembers your name, where your actions have no impact, where your existence has no meaning. The idea that everything you are, your consciousness, your personality, your experiences, could simply vanish is a horror that words can hardly describe. Philosophers like Martin Heidegger have written about the concept of being toward death, the awareness that death is the ultimate limit of existence. Heidegger argued that it is this very awareness of death that gives your life meaning, that pushes you to create, to act, to live authentically. The knowledge that your time is finite forces you to make choices, to define yourself, to live in the moment. And yet, this awareness also fills you with dread. The more you are aware of your mortality, the more you are haunted by the reality of your eventual disappearance. But even more terrifying is the realization that your death is not just the end of your life, but the end of your selfhood. You may believe that your consciousness will continue in some form, that your soul will live on, or that your impact on the world will leave a trace. But what if none of that is true? What if, when you die, you simply cease to exist, with no afterlife, no consciousness, no continuation of self? What if the idea of immortality is just another lie, another comforting myth created to protect you from the unbearable truth of your own finitude? And what happens when you realize that this fear of non-existence shapes everything about the way you live? You accumulate wealth, you build relationships, you create meaning, all in an attempt to avoid, confronting the reality that one day it will all be gone. But no matter how much you do, no matter how many accomplishments you amass, death is always waiting for you, always just around the corner, and no matter how much you strive to avoid it, you cannot escape it. Death is not something that happens to other people. It is something that happens to you, and you know it. So, ask yourself this: what does it mean to live when you know that one day you will cease to exist? What is the point of all of your striving, all of your accomplishments, if in the end they will be erased, forgotten, lost to time? And if death is the ultimate end of everything you know, then what does it mean to truly live, knowing that your existence will eventually be swallowed by the void? If non-existence is inevitable, then what does it mean to exist at all? Section 15. The paradox of free. Well, you have been told that you are free, that you have the power to choose, that you are the architect of your own destiny. You believe that your decisions, what you eat, where you go, who you love, and how you live, are made by you alone. The result of your desires, your reasoning, and your will. But what if this belief is a lie? What if you are not free, but are simply a puppet, dancing on strings pulled by forces beyond your control? The idea of free will is one of the most deeply ingrained beliefs in human society. It is the foundation of personal responsibility, the idea that you are accountable for your actions, that you have the power to shape your future. But what if free will is nothing more than an illusion? What if your choices are not the product of your own will, but are determined by factors outside of your control? Factors such as your biology, your upbringing, your culture, and the countless unconscious influences that shape every thought and action. Neuroscientists have long debated the question of free will, and many have come to the disturbing conclusion that it is an illusion. Studies, like those conducted by Benjamin Libet, have shown that the brain often makes decisions before you are consciously aware of them. In Libet's experiments, participants were asked to make a voluntary decision, such as pressing a button, and the researchers measured the brain activity that preceded the decision. What they discovered was that the brain activity occurred before the participants were aware of their choice. In other words, the brain was making decisions before the person was even consciously aware of them. This suggests that the conscious mind is not the true initiator of actions, but merely the observer, catching up with the decisions that have already been made at an unconscious level. But it doesn't stop there. The illusion of free will extends beyond individual decisions. It reaches into the very core of your existence. Consider the forces that shape your personality, your desires, your beliefs. You may believe that you are a unique individual, capable of independent thought and action. But the reality is that your mind has been shaped by external forces from the moment you were born. Your environment, your upbringing, your culture, all of these factors play a huge role in determining who you are and how you perceive the world. Your preferences, your moral values, your sense of right and wrong, all of these are learned behaviors, passed down from generation to generation. Even your sense of self is not entirely your own. It is the product of a lifetime of social conditioning. Psychologists have long argued that much of what you believe to be free will is actually the result of unconscious processes. Sigmund Freud's theory of the unconscious mind suggested that many of your thoughts, actions, and desires are driven by repressed memories and instincts that you are not consciously aware of. Even when you think you are making a rational decision, you are often influenced by unconscious forces that you cannot see, forces that shape your behavior in ways you cannot understand. The terrifying implication of this is that if free will is an illusion, then you are not the master of your own fate. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions are not the result of your own independent reasoning. They are the product of a vast web of external and internal influences. You may believe that you are acting according to your own desires, but in reality, you are simply reacting to the forces around you. You are not in control. This is the paradox of free will. You believe that you are free, that you are making independent decisions, but in reality, your every move is determined by a complex web of factors that are beyond your control. And the more you try to break free from these influences, the more you realize that they are ingrained in you, deeply rooted in your psyche and your biology. You may try to rebel, to assert your independence, but you are simply a product of your circumstances, your biology, your culture, and your unconscious mind. So, ask yourself this: if you are not truly in control of your own life, if every decision you make is influenced by factors beyond your comprehension, then what does it mean to be free? What does it mean to live a life in which every choice, every action, is dictated by forces you cannot see, forces you cannot escape? And if free will is an illusion, then what does it say about your existence, your sense of self, your place in the world? If you cannot control your own mind, then how can you control anything at all? Section 16. The paradox of reality. You live your life thinking you understand the world around you. You trust your senses, your perception, and the knowledge you have accumulated over the years. But what if everything you believe to be real is not reality at all? What if your senses, the very tools you use to navigate the world, are deceiving you? What if the reality you experience is a mere projection, a construct, a lie that your do-rest brain creates to make sense of the chaos that surrounds you? The first hint of this paradox comes from the very nature of perception. Your senses, sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell are not perfect. They are limited, selective, and often misleading. Consider optical illusions, where what you see is not what is actually there. Your brain fills in gaps, interprets images, and makes assumptions based on previous experiences, all to make sense of the world. But what if these assumptions are wrong? What if what you think you see is not the truth, but a distorted version of reality, shaped by the limitations of your senses and the biases of your mind? This is the unsettling reality of human perception. You cannot fully trust your senses to give you an accurate representation of the world. What you see, hear, and feel is not reality itself. It is a filtered version of reality, a mental reconstruction created by your brain. You are not experiencing the world as it truly is, but rather as your brain interprets it based on limited information and preconceived notions. But perception is not just a matter of the senses, it is also a matter of cognition. The way you interpret the world is shaped by your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, and your past experiences. What you think is real is not necessarily what is real, it is what your mind tells you is real. The philosopher Immanuel Kant argued that we can never truly know things as they are in themselves. Instead, we only know the world as it appears to us, through the lens of our perceptions and conceptual frameworks. Your reality is shaped by the filters of your mind, and those filters are incomplete, biased, and fallible. Even the most basic elements of reality are not as they seem. Take the concept of time, for example. You experience time as a linear progression, from the past to the present to the future. But this perception is an illusion. Einstein's theory of relativity showed that time is not a remastery, constant, unchanging force. Time can stretch, bend, and warp depending on your relative speed and the gravitational forces around you. What you perceive as time may not be the true nature of time at all. It may be a construct, a way for your mind to make sense of the events that unfold. And then there is the disturbing truth about the nature of the universe itself. According to quantum mechanics, the universe does not operate in a way that makes sense to your senses or your intellect. Subatomic particles exist in a state of probability until they are observed, at which point they collapse into a definite state. This is known as the observer effect. In other words, reality itself is altered by the act of observation. The universe does not have a fixed objective reality. It is in a constant state of flux, shaped by the interaction between the observer and the observed. The very nature of reality is subjective, fluid, and uncertain. This means that what you experience as reality, what you perceive as the world around you, is not the world as it truly is. It is an illusion, shaped by the limitations of your senses, the biases of your mind, and the fundamental nature of the universe itself. You are not experiencing reality. You are experiencing a version of reality, a filtered, incomplete, distorted projection created by your mind. And here's the most unsettling question of all. If you cannot trust your own perceptions, if your reality is not the truth, then what is left to trust? What is real? If the world you experience is not the world as it truly exists, then how do you know what is true, what is right, what is meaningful? Can you ever truly know anything about the world around you? Or are you forever trapped in a distorted, subjective version of reality? If your perception is not reality, then what is the point of living in a world that you cannot fully understand? And if the very fabric of reality is an illusion, then what does that say about the existence of meaning, purpose, and truth? What happens when you realize that you are living in a world that is not real, that your senses are deceiving you, and that your understanding of reality is just another fragile construct, subject to the whims of your mind? Section 17. The Void of Knowledge. You have spent your life seeking knowledge. It is the cornerstone of your existence, the pursuit of understanding, of truth, of insight. You have been told that knowledge will liberate you, that the more you learn, the more you will understand the world, yourself, and the universe. But what if the more you know, the more you realize you will never know enough? What if, in your pursuit of knowledge, you are simply digging deeper into a bottomless pit, a pit that grows darker and wider the more you try to fill it? Every area of knowledge, no matter how expansive, opens up 1,000 more questions, 1,000 more mysteries that you cannot yet solve. For every scientific discovery, there are 1,000 more phenomena to explain. For every answer, there are countless new questions to be asked. Take the field of cosmology. For example, humanity has only begun to scratch the surface of understanding the universe. We have discovered galaxies billions of light years away, black holes, dark matter, and quantum phenomena that seem to defy all logic. And yet, each new discovery reveals how little we truly understand about the cosmos. The more you know about the universe, the more you realize how much you don't know. The same is true of human history. You study the past, you read the stories of ancient civilizations, you learn about the rise and fall of empires, and yet, with every new piece of history uncovered, you are reminded of how much remains lost to time. History is a never-ending jigsaw puzzle, with missing pieces scattered throughout the ages, and no matter how much you uncover, the past is never fully revealed. You are left with fragments, interpretations, biases, and assumptions, and the more you learn, the more you realize that your understanding of history is incomplete, distorted, and forever shifting. And then there is the ultimate paradox, the pursuit of knowledge about yourself. You spend your life trying to understand who you are, why you are the way you are, and yet, the more you search, the more you discover how little you truly know about your own mind. Psychology, the study of the human mind, is riddled with uncertainties. You may read about theories of consciousness, personality, and behavior, but every new study reveals contradictions, complexities, and ambiguities that only deepen the mystery of what it means to be human. The more you try to understand yourself, the more you realize that the self is an illusion, a constantly shifting entity that you can never fully grasp. Even as you try to learn more about the world, the mind, and the universe, you are forced to confront the deepest and most uncomfortable truth. The more you know, the more you realize how little you can truly know. The pursuit of knowledge becomes a Sisyphean task, an endless climb toward an unattainable summit. Each piece of information you gain only reveals the vast expanse of what is still unknown, and each answer you uncover leads you to more questions, more confusion, more uncertainty. The more you know, the more you realize that you will never have enough knowledge to truly understand the world, yourself, or the universe. The idea of knowledge is, in itself, a paradox. You are taught that knowledge is the key to understanding, to progress, to enlightenment. Yet the more you seek it, the more you find yourself trapped in a cycle of perpetual uncertainty. The pursuit of knowledge is not a path to certainty, but a descent into the abyss of endless questions. You are forever chasing an elusive truth, but the closer you get, the more you realize that the truth is always just out of reach. The most unsettling part of this is the realization that the search for knowledge, rather than providing answers, only deepens your awareness of your own ignorance. You may have devoted your life to understanding the world, but the more you learn, the more you see the vastness of what you do not know. The very act of learning becomes a reminder of your limitations, your inability to ever fully understand the complexities of existence. And yet, despite this, you continue to search, to learn, to ask. Why? What drives you to pursue knowledge, even when you know it will never bring you the answers you crave? Is it an attempt to outrun the fear of ignorance, The fear of being insignificant in an uncaring universe? Or is it the simple, human need to understand, to find meaning, even in the face of the inevitable futility of the pursuit? So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that the pursuit of knowledge is not a path to understanding, but a never-ending cycle of questions, contradictions, and uncertainty? What does it mean to search for truth in a world where truth is always elusive, always just beyond your grasp? If knowledge is infinite, then can you ever truly know anything? And if knowledge itself is a never-ending abyss, what happens when you finally reach the edge of that abyss and find that there is no final answer? Section 18. The desperation of the search for meaning. You have spent your life searching for meaning. It is the core of your existence, the reason you wake up every day, the drive that pushes you forward, that compels you to act, to create, to love, to dream. But what if meaning is not something you can find, but something you are doomed to chase forever, always just out of reach? What if the search itself is the trap, and the harder you strive for meaning, the further you drift from it? In every moment of your life, you are searching for meaning. When you are working, you tell yourself that the work is meaningful, that it will lead to something greater, that it will leave a lasting impact on the world. When you form relationships, you convince yourself that the love, the connection, the bond you share with others is meaningful, that it is the reason for your existence. When you pursue dreams and goals, you believe that achieving them will bring purpose to your life. But the harder you search, the more you realize that meaning is not something you can hold on to. It is something that slips away, like sand through your fingers. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote about this absurdity in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus. In it, he describes the human condition as one in which we are constantly striving for meaning, for purpose, in a world that is inherently indifferent and devoid of any inherent meaning. Like Sisyphus, who was condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill only for it to roll back down again, we are trapped in an eternal cycle of seeking something that can never be attained. No matter how much you achieve, how much you acquire, how much you experience, the emptiness remains. There is no ultimate purpose, no final goal that will satisfy your desire for meaning. And yet, you cannot stop searching, because to stop would be to confront the horrifying reality that there is nothing to find. This search for meaning, this desperate striving for purpose, is the ultimate human paradox. The more you seek it, the more it eludes you. The more you grasp for it, the more you are reminded that it is a phantom, a shadow that dances just beyond your reach. You may find moments of meaning, moments of joy, of connection, of success, but these moments are fleeting. They are temporary flickers in the darkness, quickly swallowed by the void. The more you seek to fill the emptiness inside you, the more you realize that it cannot be filled. The void remains, as vast and as infinite as the universe itself. The existential philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre argued that humans are condemned to create their own meaning in a world that offers none. According to Sartre, you must choose to create purpose for your life, to make choices that give your existence meaning. But this freedom, this burden of choice, is not liberating. It is overwhelming. To create your own meaning is to acknowledge that there is no external purpose. It is up to you to find meaning in a world that is indifferent to your existence, and the weight of this responsibility is suffocating. The realization that your life is ultimately meaningless, that you alone are responsible for creating meaning in a world that offers none, can lead to despair, to a deep sense of isolation and hopelessness. But there is something even more terrifying in this search for meaning. It is not just that meaning is elusive, it is that it may be entirely unnecessary. What if meaning is a construct, a fiction you've created to cope with the unbearable truth of your existence? What if the pursuit of meaning is not a path to fulfillment, but a way to distract yourself from the crushing reality that life has no inherent purpose? Perhaps the search for meaning is a way to avoid confronting the fact that life, in its most fundamental sense, is meaningless. The universe does not care whether you live or die. It does not care what you achieve, what you experience, or what you believe. The idea of meaning is something you've created to stave off the terror of your own mortality, to make your existence seem more palatable. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that meaning is not something you can find, but something you must create, and that it will always remain temporary, incomplete, and ultimately hollow? What happens when you confront the truth that there is no ultimate meaning, no final purpose, no grand design? If the search for meaning is a futile pursuit, then what is the point of living? And if there is no ultimate meaning, then why do you continue to chase after something that will never fill the void inside you? Section 19. The paradox of human progress. You've been taught that progress is inevitable, that humanity is constantly advancing toward a better future. With every new discovery, every technological breakthrough, every revolution in thought and action, you are told that the world is moving forward, improving, growing. But what if progress itself is a lie? What if the very concept of progress is nothing more than a comforting narrative, a story you tell yourself to make sense of an ever-changing, chaotic world? What if every step forward is, in fact, a step toward a deeper, more profound disaster? From the beginning, humanity has defined itself by its progress. You measure your success, your worth, and your future by how much you have improved upon the past. You believe that each generation is superior to the last, that with every new invention, every new societal development, you are building a better world. But consider this. For every step forward, there is a corresponding step backward. For every advancement in technology, there is a corresponding increase in inequality, in environmental destruction, in social fragmentation. Every new solution you create introduces new problems, and these problems often spiral out of control in ways that you cannot anticipate. Take the rise of industrialization, for example. The Industrial Revolution promised prosperity and efficiency. It gave rise to new technologies, new industries, and new systems of production that transformed the world. But it also brought with it pollution, exploitation, and environmental degradation on an unprecedented scale. The factories that fueled economic growth also spewed toxins into the air, poisoned rivers, and displaced entire communities. The promise of progress came at the cost of the Earth's resources and the dignity of workers. The more you advanced, the more you damaged the very systems that sustained you. The same paradox plays out in every area of modern life. You develop new technologies that promise to make your life easier, but these technologies also create new forms of dependency, new forms of alienation, and new ways for powerful forces to control your life. The internet connects you to the world, but it also creates a digital prison where you are constantly surveilled, manipulated, and controlled. The advancements in medicine extend your life, but they also raise the spectre of overpopulation, resource scarcity, and social inequality. Every time you solve a problem, you create 1,000 more, and the cycle never ends. In fact, the very concept of progress may be fundamentally flawed. You define progress as improvement, but what if improvement is not the true measure of human success? What if progress, as you understand it, is simply a myth, a never-ending chase that leads nowhere? The more you strive to build a better world, the more you become aware of the growing gulf between what you have created and what you hope to achieve. The future you envision, the utopia you are told is within reach, is always just out of grasp, slipping further away the more you push toward it. Every leap forward is accompanied by a greater fall, and the cycle repeats itself endlessly. The paradox of progress is that it is not linear, not a steady climb upward, but a series of loops and spirals that lead nowhere. Every new system of thought, every new technology, every new social movement promises that it will lead to a better world. But each one falls short, each one unravels in the face of new challenges, new contradictions, and new problems that were never accounted for. And as you move forward, you realize that the future you imagined is always just out of reach, and the present you inhabit is always broken, always falling apart. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that progress is not the path to salvation, but the path to endless struggle? What happens when you realize that every attempt to improve the world, to solve the problems you face, only creates more problems, more complexity, more destruction? If progress is not a straight line, but a cycle of never-ending failure, then what is the point of trying to move forward? And if the future is always slipping further away, then what does it mean to live in a world that promises progress, but delivers nothing but the same endless struggle? Section 20. The perpetual cycle of destruction. You may have noticed it. The world seems to be caught in an endless cycle. It's a cycle of creation and destruction, of birth and death, of growth and decay. For every civilization that rises, another falls. For every advancement in knowledge, another misunderstanding, another failure emerges. For every piece of progress, there is an equal and opposite regression. The cycle repeats, and humanity trapped within it continues to spin its wheels, ever striving but never truly escaping the pull of its own destruction. History is not a linear path of upward progress, as you've been led to believe. It is a spiral, a relentless loop of destruction and rebirth, where each cycle is bound by the same forces, the same flaws, and the same fundamental mistakes. You may think that humanity has learned from the past, that the mistakes of earlier generations are not destined to be repeated. But history shows you a different truth, that the same patterns, the same destructive tendencies, play out again and again, regardless of how much knowledge is gained or how many generations have passed. The rise and fall of civilizations is the clearest example of this cyclical nature. The Roman Empire, once the height of human achievement, collapsed under the weight of its own expansion, corruption, and internal strife. The fall of Rome was not an isolated event. It was part of a larger, universal pattern. Every great empire that has risen from the Aztecs to the Mongols to the British Empire has ultimately crumbled, unable to escape the gravitational pull of its own weaknesses. You may look at the modern world and see the United States, or China, or the European Union, and think that these nations are immune to the forces that caused the fall of their predecessors. But they are not. The same patterns are already unfolding, and their inevitable decline is simply a matter of time. But the cycle is not limited to civilizations alone. It extends to the very systems you rely on: the economy, the environment, the social structures you've created. These systems, which you believe are progressive and self-sustaining, are fragile, teetering on the brink of collapse. Look at the state of the environment. You have polluted the air, the water, and the land, and despite all the promises of green technology and sustainable practices, the damage has already been done. Climate change is no longer a future concern. It is a present reality, one that will continue to spiral out of control, regardless of the attempts to reverse it. You have created a world that is dependent on exploitation, the extraction of resources, the consumption of goods, the destruction of ecosystems. You have convinced yourselves that this is progress, that technological advancements and economic growth are the path to a better future. But in reality, each step forward is one step closer to ecological collapse. Each new technological solution creates new problems, and the more you advance, the closer you come to the point of no return. And then, there is the social cycle, the patterns of inequality and injustice that seem to persist through time. You tell yourself that society has progressed, that slavery has been abolished, that civil rights have been achieved, that gender equality is within reach. And yet, despite these advancements, the cycle of oppression continues. Economic inequality grows, racial injustice persists, and new forms of discrimination arise, hiding under the guise of progress. Every victory for equality is followed by a new form of social division, and no matter how many revolutions are fought, no matter how many movements rise, the systems of power and control continue to operate, reproducing the same hierarchies, the same inequalities. This is the greatest horror of all, the realization that you are trapped in a perpetual cycle of destruction. There is no escape. The progress you strive for is not true progress. It is an illusion, a temporary reprieve before the inevitable collapse. Every step forward leads you 2 steps back, and every cycle of creation is followed by an equal cycle of destruction. Humanity is doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again as it moves through the ages, never truly learning, never truly evolving. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that every effort you make to improve the world, to create something better, only feeds into the cycle of destruction? What happens when you understand that humanity is not moving forward but simply trapped in an endless loop of rise and fall, of birth and death, of creation and decay? If there is no way to break the cycle, then what is the point of trying? And if humanity is doomed to repeat the same mistakes, then what does it mean to be human? Section 21. The disintegration of identity. You have spent your life constructing a sense of self, building an identity that you believe is uniquely yours, shaped by your experiences, your desires, and your values. You believe you are distinct, an individual whose thoughts, feelings, and choices define who you are. But what if this identity is an illusion? What if the self you have built is not the product of your own independent will, but a fragile construct, a story that you tell yourself in order to make sense of a world that is indifferent to your existence? The concept of identity is central to human life. You are taught that you are an individual, that you have a personal identity that sets you apart from others. Your name, your appearance, your personality, your beliefs. These are all part of your identity, the unique qualities that make you who you are. But what if this identity is not a permanent, stable thing, but something that is constantly shifting, constantly being shaped by external forces you cannot control? What if the you that you know is not an expression of your true self, but a projection of the world around you? A mask that you wear to survive in a society that demands conformity? The truth is that your identity is not something you create. It is something that is imposed upon you by society, by culture, by biology. From the moment you are born, you are shaped by the influences of your family, your community, your culture, your desires, your values, your beliefs. They are not the product of your own free will, but are shaped by the world you inhabit. You learn to see yourself through the lens of society's expectations. You are a student, a worker, a partner, a parent. You are told who you should be, what you should want, what you should believe, and you shape your identity to fit those expectations. The philosopher Michel Foucault argued that identity is not something inherent, but something that is constructed through the systems of power that shape your life. Your sense of self is not the result of some essential, unchanging core, but a product of the social, political, and economic forces that govern your existence. The person you think you are is a reflection of the roles you have been assigned, the labels you have been given, and the expectations that have been placed upon you. Your identity is not your own. It is the sum of the forces that have shaped you, and it is as malleable, as fragile, as any other product of human culture. And this is the most unsettling realization of all. Your identity, the very thing you cling to as the essence of who you are, is not permanent. It is not stable. It is constantly shifting, constantly being influenced by the world around you. The person you are today may not be the same person you were 5 years ago, and you will not be the same person in 5 years' time. Your identity is a fluid, ever-changing construct, shaped by your experiences, your relationships, and the passage of time. The sense of self that you hold onto is an illusion, a story you tell yourself to make sense of your life, but one that is constantly rewritten and reinterpreted. This disintegration of identity is further complicated by the rise of technology. In the digital age, your identity is no longer confined to the physical world. Your sense of self is now shaped by your online presence, your social media profiles, your digital footprint. You present a curated version of yourself to the world, a carefully constructed image that may bear little resemblance to the person you are in reality. And yet, this online identity becomes as real to you as the physical one. The more you interact with others in the digital realm, the more your sense of self becomes tied to your online persona, and the more disconnected you feel from your true self. You begin to live in a world of images, of projections, of performances, and the distinction between who you truly are and who you appear to be becomes increasingly blurred. But even more terrifying is the realization that the self you cling to is not even fully yours. As neuroscientist Antonio Damasio has shown, your sense of self is a product of the brain's constant processing of sensory information, of emotions, of thoughts. Your self is a collection of processes, of responses, of reactions that your brain assembles into a coherent narrative. Your identity is not a stable entity, it is a fluid, ever-shifting construct that exists only in the moment, only in the context of your current experience. The self you know, the you that you are, is a temporary construction, a fleeting illusion created by the brain to help you navigate the world. And so, the ultimate question arises. If your identity is not truly yours, if it is a product of external influences, if it is constantly shifting and changing, then what are you? What happens when you realize that the self you've spent your life constructing is nothing more than a temporary, fragile illusion? And if your identity is just a story that you tell yourself to make sense of a chaotic world, then who are you really? If your identity is nothing more than a shifting, illusory construct, then what does it mean to be truly human? Section 22. The collapse of hope. Hope is something you cling to. It is the light in the darkness, the reason you get out of bed every morning, the force that pushes you forward when everything around you seems to be falling apart. You tell yourself that as long as there is hope, there is reason to keep going. But what happens when hope itself begins to fade? What happens when the very thing you depend on, the thing that keeps you going, the thing that gives you the strength to survive, begins to crumble, revealing that it was always fragile, always empty, always an illusion? Hope is often portrayed as a virtuous, necessary force, the driving factor behind human resilience, the force that inspires change, progress, and survival. It is embedded in every motivational speech, every self-help book, every uplifting story you hear. You are told that as long as you hold on to hope, you can overcome any obstacle, weather any storm. But consider this: hope is only as powerful as the reality that underpins it. And when that reality is revealed to be nothing but fragile promises, built on false assumptions and shaky foundations, hope begins to lose its meaning. The most unsettling part of hope is that it can be used to manipulate you. Hope is not just a force that drives you forward. It is a tool used by those in power to control you, to keep you complacent, to make you believe that the future will be better, that things will improve. Hope is used to convince you that change is possible, that progress is inevitable, that the suffering you experience will one day be rewarded. But what if that hope is false? What if the promises of a better future, a brighter tomorrow, are nothing but lies, designed to keep you in line, designed to make you believe that change is coming when it never truly will? Think of the promises of politicians, of corporations, of societal leaders. They tell you that if you work hard enough, if you follow the rules, if you conform to the expectations of society, you will achieve success. They tell you that if you fight for equality, for justice, for progress, the world will become a better place. But after decades of struggle, after generations of effort, how much has really changed? The rich remain rich, the powerful remain in control, and the systems of oppression continue to function, unbroken. You are left wondering, where is the hope you were promised? Where is the change? Where is the better world that you were told to believe in? Hope becomes a cruel game when you realize that it is not reality you are hoping for, but a projection of your desires. The future you long for is not grounded in the present. It is a fantasy, a wishful thinking that ignores the inherent flaws in the systems that shape your world. You are not hoping for change. You are hoping for a way to escape the truth that the world will never be the way you want it to be. The truth is that hope does not lead to change. It leads to disillusionment. It leads to frustration. It leads to the crushing realization that despite your best efforts, the world will always remain the same. But hope does not just belong to the realm of politics and social change. It also governs your personal life. You hope that your relationships will improve, that your career will take off, that your dreams will be realized. You hope that one day, everything will fall into place. But what happens when the things you've worked for, the things you've hoped for, never come to fruition? What happens when your personal dreams are left unfulfilled, when the promises of success and happiness are never realized? The more you hope for something better, the more you are reminded of how empty your efforts have been. The collapse of hope is not just a personal crisis, it is a societal one. When you lose hope, you lose the driving force that propels you forward. You lose the belief that there is a purpose to your struggles, that there is a reason for your suffering, and in the absence of hope, what are you left with? A hollow existence, a life filled with meaningless effort, a life where every action feels futile because you no longer believe that anything will change. The collapse of hope is the collapse of your will to live, to act, to strive. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that hope is nothing but a fragile illusion, a lie designed to keep you in line, to make you believe that something better is just around the corner when it never truly will be? What happens when you confront the truth that hope is not the path to change, but a tool used to trap you in an endless cycle of longing and disappointment? If hope is all you have, and that hope is false, then what happens when you finally realize that there is no salvation, no escape, no promise of a better tomorrow? Section 23. The tyranny of choice. You have been told that freedom is the ability to choose. Choice is the cornerstone of modern existence. It is the foundation of democracy, of personal liberty, of autonomy. You believe that the more choices you have, the more control you have over your life. The more options available to you, the more freedom you possess. But what if the tyranny of choice is not freedom at all? What if the overwhelming number of choices you face is nothing more than a cage? A prison that traps you, forces you to exist in constant states of indecision and anxiety, making you more lost than ever? In the modern world, you are bombarded with choices at every turn. Every day, you are faced with an endless array of decisions: what to eat, what to wear, where to live, what career to pursue, what beliefs to follow, what entertainment to consume, what social issues to care about. You believe that with all these choices, you are free, that you are in control of your own destiny. But the truth is that the abundance of choices only makes you more powerless. The more choices you have, the harder it becomes to make any decision at all. Every choice is accompanied by doubt, by the fear of making the wrong choice, by the knowledge that the path you select is irreversible and that you cannot go back. The psychological concept of decision paralysis explains this phenomenon. The more options you have, the harder it becomes to make a decision. In a world where every choice feels significant, every decision feels loaded with meaning, you begin to fear the consequences of getting it wrong. What if the life you choose now is the wrong one? What if the person you marry is not the right person? What if the career you pursue leaves you unfulfilled? The pressure to make the right choice, the best choice, becomes so overwhelming that it often paralyzes you, leaving you unable to act at all. You become stuck in a perpetual state of indecision, constantly second-guessing yourself, unable to commit to a single path for fear of regret. This paradox is especially true when you consider the vast number of options available in modern society. You are constantly told that the world is yours for the taking, that you can become anyone, do anything, achieve any dream. But the more choices you are given, the more you are burdened with the task of choosing. The ideal life you have been promised is not one of true freedom, but one of constant stress, constant pressure, and constant uncertainty. The more choices you have, the more you feel trapped. The more paths you can take, the more you fear choosing the wrong one. This feeling of being trapped by choice is only intensified by the digital world. The internet is a realm of infinite choices. You have access to every piece of information, every product, every idea, every opinion that exists. You can choose to watch any video, read any article, buy any item, or engage with any ideology. But with this abundance comes a suffocating overload of options. The internet promises freedom, but it also creates a world in which you are constantly bombarded with more choices than you could ever possibly navigate. You are left feeling adrift, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of your own decisions. In the end, you are not free. You are enslaved by the very abundance of choice that was supposed to set you free. The tyranny of choice doesn't just affect your personal decisions, it affects society as a whole. The modern world has turned every aspect of life into a marketplace of choices. What food to eat, what clothes to buy, what lifestyle to adopt, what political ideology to follow. Each of these is a choice, and each choice comes with its own set of pressures, expectations, and consequences. You are constantly asked to define yourself by your choices, to prove your worth through your decisions. But the more choices you are given, the more you realize that your identity is not the product of your freedom, but the product of the pressures that push you to make those choices. The marketplace of ideas, identities, and lifestyles forces you to fit into a mold, even as it presents you with infinite ways to fail. And the most horrifying realization of all is that the illusion of freedom, the illusion of choice, only makes you more susceptible to manipulation. As you are bombarded with endless options, you are led to believe that you are in control, that you are free to choose the path that suits you best. But in reality, every choice you make is influenced by powerful external forces: advertising, social media algorithms, cultural norms, economic pressures. The illusion of freedom is just that, an illusion. You are not free. You are merely reacting to the forces that have shaped your desires, your preferences, your beliefs. You are not in control of your life. You are a product of the choices that others have created for you. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that every choice you make is not truly yours, but a product of external influences, of the systems that control your desires and your actions? What happens when you understand that the very abundance of choice that you believed made you free has, in fact, imprisoned you, overwhelmed you, and left you paralyzed with indecision? If choice is a prison, then what does it mean to be truly free? Section 24. The absurdity of human achievement. You have been told that humanity's greatest accomplishments are proof of your potential, of your ability to overcome obstacles and shape the world to your will. You point to the advancements in technology, the towering cities, the breakthroughs in medicine and science, and you believe that these are the fruits of human brilliance, the result of centuries of progress. But what if these so-called achievements are not triumphs at all? What if, in the grand scheme of the universe, they are meaningless, inconsequential, and utterly absurd? Look around you. The monuments to human achievement are everywhere. Gleaming skyscrapers, advanced medical technologies, space exploration, art and literature that span the ages. These are the symbols of your success, the evidence that humanity has transcended its primal nature and risen to unimaginable heights. But when you pause and look closely, you see that these achievements, as grand as they may seem, are all temporary. The skyscrapers will crumble, the medical advances will become obsolete, the spaceships will be forgotten. Even the greatest works of art, the most profound expressions of human creativity, will eventually fade into dust, lost to time and to the inevitable decay of all things. This is the paradox of human achievement. The more you create, the more you build, the more you strive, the more you are reminded of your own mortality, your own insignificance. Every accomplishment you make is but a fleeting moment in the vastness of time, and when you are gone, so too will be the things you work so hard to create. The towering monuments to civilization will eventually crumble to the ground. The innovations you so proudly championed will be replaced by newer, more advanced technologies, and the history you so desperately cling to will be erased by time. Consider the rise and fall of empires. The Roman Empire, once the pinnacle of human achievement, left behind roads, aqueducts, and monumental structures that have withstood the test of time. But what is left of Rome today? The empire that once spanned continents is now reduced to ruins, and the very people who built it are long forgotten. The same fate awaits every civilization, every empire, every culture that believes it is eternal. You are no different. The world you build will one day be reduced to rubble, and the achievements you celebrate will be nothing more than a brief blip in the infinite expanse of time. Even in the realm of science, the very thing you cling to as a measure of progress and understanding, you are confronted with the absurdity of human achievement. Every scientific discovery, every breakthrough, is followed by an endless stream of questions, uncertainties, and paradoxes. The more you learn about the universe, the more you realize how little you truly understand. The discoveries of today are only the stepping stones to the mysteries of tomorrow, and for every answer you find, 1,000 more questions emerge. The more you understand the cosmos, the more you realize how insignificant your existence is in the vast, indifferent expanse of space. The universe does not care about your discoveries. It will continue to exist, indifferent to your achievements, long after you are gone. The same is true of technology. You have created machines that can think, robots that can work, artificial intelligences that can learn and evolve. These creations, which you once believed would usher in a new era of human prosperity, have begun to surpass you, to replace you. What happens when the machines you've created no longer need you? What happens when they become the dominant force in the world, controlling the systems that once depended on human labor, and you are left with nothing? The very tools you've created to enhance your life will eventually render you obsolete, and all the progress you've made will amount to nothing more than a brief moment in the timeline of the universe's indifference. And then, there is the ultimate absurdity of existence itself. What is the point of human achievement when, in the grand scheme of the universe, your existence is but a fleeting moment? You were born by chance, you live in a world that doesn't care for you, and you will die, forgotten, without any lasting impact. The achievements of humanity, its art, its science, its progress will fade into nothingness, and the universe will continue on without you, as if you never existed. You are a tiny speck in the vast ocean of time, a brief flicker of consciousness in an eternal void. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that all your achievements, all your progress, all your hard work will one day be forgotten, lost to time? What happens when you understand that no matter what you accomplish, no matter how grand your creations, they are ultimately meaningless in the face of time's relentless march? If human achievement is destined to fade, then what is the point of striving for anything at all? Section 25. The absurdity of perception. You trust your senses. You trust your ability to see, hear, touch, taste, and smell the world around you, convinced that these faculties provide an accurate reflection of reality. You rely on your perception to guide you through life, to make decisions, to interact with others, and to understand your place in the universe. But what if perception itself is a lie? What if everything you experience, everything you think you know, is nothing more than a subjective illusion, shaped by the limitations and biases of your mind? The first and most obvious problem with perception is that it is not universal. What you see, hear, and experience is not the same as what anyone else sees, hears, or experiences. The colors you see are not the same as the colors someone else sees. The way you perceive taste, texture, and temperature is not shared by everyone. Even your sense of time is a subjective experience, shaped by the rhythms of your mind, your emotions, and your environment. You cannot directly access another person's perception of the world. You can only infer it from their behavior, their words, and the few clues they give you. But even that is limited, incomplete, and often unreliable. Consider optical illusions. Your brain can be fooled into perceiving things that aren't really there, distorting reality in ways that seem perfectly normal to you. A straight line can appear crooked, a circle can appear distorted, and two objects of identical size can appear vastly different. These illusions are not mistakes or tricks. They are a natural result of the way your brain processes visual information. What you see is not an objective reality. It is a mental construct, shaped by the way your brain interprets and organizes sensory input. And this isn't just true of visual perception, it extends to all your senses. Your perception of sound, touch, and taste is just as easily manipulated, influenced by your expectations, your state of mind, and the context in which you encounter them. This subjective nature of perception is compounded by the biases and filters that shape how you interpret the world. You may think you see things as they truly are, but your brain constantly interprets the information it receives through the lens of your personal experiences, cultural conditioning, and emotional state. Your beliefs, your fears, your desires, all of these shape your perception, often without you even realizing it. You see the world not as it is, but as you are, filtered through the lens of your identity, your history, and your expectations. This means that your perception of reality is not only subjective, it is distorted, incomplete, and often false. Consider the way people perceive others. You meet someone for the first time, and immediately you make judgments about them. You form opinions about their character, their intelligence, their worth. But how much of that perception is based on reality, and how much is based on your own biases? Your mind is constantly categorizing and judging, filtering people into neat boxes based on superficial traits like appearance, behavior, and speech. You judge people by their race, their gender, their social status, their accent, their clothing, all without ever truly understanding who they are. Your perception of others is influenced by a lifetime of cultural conditioning, by stereotypes, by social norms, and by personal experiences. And because your brain processes information so quickly, it doesn't even allow you the time to challenge these assumptions. You see what you expect to see, not what is actually there. But the most terrifying aspect of perception is that it is not just limited to external reality, it extends to your very sense of self. Your perception of who you are is shaped by the same biases, the same distortions, the same subjective filters that influence everything else you experience. You see yourself not as you truly are, but as you believe yourself to be. Your self-image is constantly shaped by your past experiences, your fears, your desires, and the way you think others perceive you. You build a narrative about yourself, a story that helps you make sense of your life, but that narrative is built on shaky ground. It is shaped by the same illusions, the same distortions that shape your perception of the world and others. And because your sense of self is so central to your existence, it is impossible to see it objectively. You are trapped in a subjective experience of who you are, unable to fully know yourself, unable to fully trust the story you tell about your own life. This subjective nature of perception creates an unsettling reality. You cannot truly know the world, or even yourself. You are constantly deceived by your senses, your mind, your emotions, and the external forces that shape your perception. You live in a world that you can never fully understand, a world that is filtered through layers of illusion, bias, and distortion. The very foundation of your experience is unstable, unreliable, and ultimately unknowable. So, ask yourself, what happens when you realize that everything you think you know, everything you think you perceive, is subjective, incomplete, and unreliable? What happens when you realize that your senses cannot be trusted, that your perception of reality is shaped by forces you cannot control. If the world around you is an illusion, if your sense of self is an illusion, then what is left to hold on to? If perception is not reality, then what is real? Final collapse conclusion. You began this journey with the belief that reality was something you could understand, something you could grasp and hold on to. You were taught that knowledge, progress, and the pursuit of happiness would lead to fulfillment, that freedom and individuality were your birthright. But now, after confronting the paradoxes and illusions that underpin every aspect of your existence, you are left with a sobering truth. Reality is not what you thought it was. You are not in control. Your existence is fleeting, your sense of self is fragile, and the very foundations of the world you live in are built on illusions. The more you searched for meaning, the more you realized that it was always out of reach. The more you sought happiness, the more you understood that it was not a destination, but a fleeting mirage. The more you believed in progress, the more you saw the cycles of destruction repeat themselves, again and again, as humanity stumbles toward its inevitable collapse. Your sense of individuality, your sense of self, has been shattered, revealing that your identity was never truly yours to begin with, but a construct of forces beyond your control. Even the very perception of reality itself is a lie, a distorted, subjective interpretation created by your mind, shaped by biases and filters, leaving you unable to ever truly know the world, yourself, or the truth. You are trapped in a web of contradictions. You are free, yet not free. You are alive, yet you are constantly dying. You are aware of yourself, yet your very sense of self is an illusion. Every decision you make is shaped by forces beyond your control. Every effort you make toward progress is a futile attempt to break free from a cycle of destruction, and every moment of hope is a fleeting escape from the cold, indifferent truth of your existence. The more you strive for meaning, for understanding, for purpose, the more you are confronted with the horrifying reality that there is no ultimate meaning, no final purpose, no answer that can satisfy the emptiness inside. In the end, you are left with the most terrifying question of all. If nothing you do, nothing you learn, nothing you create will ever truly matter, then what is the point of living? What is the point of striving for a future that will never come, for happiness that will never be fully attained, for progress that will only lead to further despair? And if your life is nothing more than an illusion, a fleeting moment in the grand scheme of time, then what does it mean to exist at all? You have been told that there is hope, that there is meaning, that there is purpose. But now you know the truth. There is only the void. There is only the endless cycle of creation and destruction, of birth and death, of striving and failing. The world will continue, indifferent to your existence, and when you are gone, nothing will remain but the memories of those who came after you, and even they will eventually fade into nothing. So, as you drift into sleep, or as you wake from this journey, ask yourself, what remains when the illusions are stripped away? What is left when you realize that your existence is fleeting, your choices are meaningless, and your pursuit of truth is a never-ending spiral of despair? And when the dust of your life settles and the echoes of your existence fade away, will anyone even notice that you were here? What happens when you face the final, inevitable truth that nothing truly matters?